So, over the past few weeks, I've been recording sounds to test for my zombie film. These include crushing celery, snapping celery, and doing many things with celery, and squeezing wet cloths and eating a nearly mouldy plum, which was very horrifying. So I'm going to go through all the sounds and explain how I came to this sound. So first of all, we have this first sound here. Very simply, I crushed celery. I snapped some celery. Then I've dropped it down by 5 semitones, and I've slowed it down to 78% because it needed to be a bit longer, and when you slow it down it also makes it a bit deeper without degrading the audio at all. So that's why I've done that. Next up we have, that's me twisting celery very slowly to get a more wet effect. For this one I haven't lowered it at all, but I have slowed it down to 70%, so it's quite a fair bit slower. And that's the first sound you hear. That crush at the beginning, that's sort of the introduction to the sound. That's the first thing you hear, and I think it's a really good first sound. This next sound here, it's purely this snap, but I had it dragged out to here because I like formality. It was a lot easier to work with. And that snap, I've lowered the pitch down just by 2 because I could lower it down a lot more, but then it gets just not as good, and I could obviously up it a lot as well. But I think lowering it by 2 gave me the just right effect. Like, it's just what I wanted. And then I believe I also slowed it down. Oh, I have not slowed this one down, so I clearly didn't need to. And I think we're getting to the more interesting sounds now. So for this one, that's me getting celery, and instead of snapping it lengthways, I snapped it along the middle. So celery's C-shaped, so when I snapped it, it came for a lot better break. Instead of it just being a solid snap, it took a lot longer, and it allowed for a lot better effect. And it added a bit more moisture, which I really needed because it did sound quite dry without this sound in it. And finally, we have this sound, which is me squeezing a wet rag. And that was, yet again, just to add some moisture to it, because without that sound, I just think it doesn't have as much bite to it as I'd like. You can it connects everything together a bit more, I feel. With this sound, it really allows everything to bond. And the same with this sound, if I were to mute this one, it's all of a sudden you lose so much substance from the original sound. So that's what I've been doing. I've made that sound, which is the sound of a arm being broken and bitten. It's a really aggressive sound. So that is my sound design now.